the door was open for them to be able to move back down there. And I had this little thing that I did that helped them make that decision a little quicker. I burnt our house down.
Everything that you think you might like, you should try to do. Doing something around passion is very similar to love. You're blinded because you like it. The number one reason I push patience, man, patience. Everybody's looking up to audit themselves where they are now. Is because patience will give you the air cover to take risks. Time is your asset. What I would do is gather as many experiences as possible. The one thing a 20-year-old has over me is 20 years. The 99% that achieve are willing to sacrifice, be persistent, and think in 50-year terms, not 50-day terms.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Leaving the 9 to 5, brought to you by the Lifting Love Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Lenny, and alongside of me is my co-host and friend, DJ, the DJ.
What's going on, everybody?
Good to see you, DJ. We're back.
Leaving the 9 to 5 is proudly presented by TechLight Associates Incorporated. Call TechLight for all your technology, wireless, or audio-visual needs. Whether you're in New York, North Carolina, or anywhere in the United States, TechLight has got you covered, even offering financing options for your next big project. So give TechLight a call today or visit them online at www.techlightassociates.com. Now let's get on with the episode. All right. So our first guest of the podcast, just want to say that, is an award-winning speaker.
Welcome.
Are you ready for this? Drumline, please. Our next guest is an award-winning speaker, personality strategist, and most importantly, he's a father. But make some noise for Mr. Enthusiasm himself, Tommy Lanham.
Woo! Welcome, Tommy.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm excited to be on the show. I love what you guys are doing, leaving the 9 to 5. That is right up my alley. So I'm just glad to be a part of this. Thank you for the invitation.
We're glad to have you.
Great to have you here. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I know you do a lot. So what I like to, when I learn about people is, I like to dial the clock back. Right? Like, you're doing a lot of stuff now. You're doing amazing things, some cool, really cool things. When did all this start for you? I mean, I just know from your website that I was reading that there's a lot going on there. Right. So can you bring us back in time and kind of talk about when all this started?
Well,
that's a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, we could go way back if you want to, all the way back to when I was a kid. I just had an entrepreneurial mindset. You know, I was always looking at how I could make money outside of the typical 9 to 5 box. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Obviously, I mean, there's a lot of people that work 9 to 5 and they keep this country moving, and we are glad for that. If that's your calling, do it. But for some, that's not their calling, and I felt like that was for me. I've done the 9 to 5 stuff. I can do it when I need to, but it's not where I shine. And so, even as a kid, I would do things like I had you remember cassette tapes? You guys know what cassette? I know you guys are a little younger than I am. Back in my day,
we just made the cut.
Back in my day, that's the way we listened to music, was with cassette tapes. And the bad thing about cassette tapes is sometimes they would get twisted or all messed up and all tangled up inside. And I actually ran a little business where I would fix those for people when I was in junior high. It would get all twisted and stuff, and
Awesome.
I had some tools where I could actually.
Where were you when I needed
I could actually take it apart and get it back together. And sometimes they would break, and I learned how to be able to use Scotch tape and tape it back together. It's just a quick little change that you hear in the music, but for the most part, you were able to listen to it just like you normally would, and I would just charge a small fee for that. Also, in junior high, we actually had a smoking area at our junior high school, which was what they call middle school now. So what I would do is I would borrow cigarettes from people. I would ask people for a cigarette. And anybody will give you just one cigarette. And every now and then I would smoke a few just to let people know that I was smoking them. I quit that a long time ago, by the way. But most of them I would actually resell for $0.10 a piece to other people.
My
I would
man.
make a profit just by, I would borrow a cigarette and then sell it for a dime. So, from the beginning, I had kind of this mindset to look outside the box. So, I don't know if that's what you were looking for in that.
Wow.
That's different. I'm learning a lot about him today.
So this is something that was super early on. Like you knew that, hey, this is exactly what I want to do. Honestly, just to bring it real current, real quick, for the people who don't know who you are. Who are you, and what do you do?
Well, just to clarify, it wasn't that I always wanted to sell cigarettes, but I think I did always want to be an entrepreneur. But I don't know that I identified it as that back then. But who am I? I mean, I am first and foremost, I'm a follower of Jesus. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. Those things are the most important things. If situations changed and I had to do 9 to 5 for a period of time, or even for the rest of my life, being a follower of Jesus, being a husband, and being a dad would not change in the midst of all of that. But in addition to that, I am a guy that is on fire. The word enthusiasm kind of defines my life, and I have actually redefined that word, enthusiasm. It actually comes from 2 Greek words, the en meaning in, and the thus is a form of the Greek word theos, which is the Greek word for God. And the original meaning of the word enthusiasm meant God in you or God inspired. And so I've kind of taken that and developed my own definition of enthusiasm, and it's this. Enthusiasm is a God-inspired fire ignited deep within your soul that drives you to never settle, to live with passion, and to turn the world upside down. And that is really what defines my life, whether it's being a husband, being a dad, being a pastor. I also pastor a church, whether it's being a speaker or life coach, whatever it is I do, that kind of defines me. It's this God-inspired fire that he has ignited deep within my soul that drives me to never settle, to live with passion, and to turn the world upside down.
I think that's the quote of the week right there.
We do have a news segment where we do quote of the week, but I mean, we were going to wait, but there it is.
There you go.
First one. I love it. I love it.
Man, I'm fired up. I'm ready to run through a wall right now. Like you have that energy seriously, like you have that energy that I can only imagine when you talk to people, makes them want to literally, like, I know the expressions, I want to run through a wall right now, but you have that fire, you have that desire. What was, like, if you could bring us to, like, that first coaching experience, what was that like compared to where you're at now? Is it night and day, the difference on coaching people?
The weird thing about, trying to look at my first coaching experience, when I first got introduced to coaching in 2005, I realized this is what I've done the majority of my life, is I've coached people. I was actually working on a master's in counseling, and through some research I was doing for a class, came across life coaching, and it intrigued me. And the more I read about it, the more I thought, this is more what I want to do than actual counseling. And so I kind of shifted gears there. And so in the latter part of 2005, I actually got certified as a life coach and began coaching. And now listen, I've always had the fire. So the fire was there. What I didn't have necessarily was the developed skill set. I had taken a training course. Like I said, much of what I'd done up to that point was coaching anyways, but it was what you would call informal coaching. So I learned how to do it in a more formal way and learned some of the techniques and the skills of coaching in that first training. But because of the fire, I have learned to continue to develop that. And even today, one of the things that I teach people is find out what you're good at doing and then improve that. Oftentimes we look at what we're good at doing and then we go, okay, I'm not good at this. And we spend the majority of our time in the things we're not good at. And I think that's a mistake. We do need to spend some time there because I call that maintenance. There's some things we need to do maintenance on in order to get along in this world. But that's not where we wanted to put the majority of our time, energy, and effort. We want to put the majority of our time, energy, and effort into the things that we do well so that we can do them better. I like to talk about we often talk about the 20-80 rule. Spend about 20% of your energy, time, and effort working on those things you're weak at. But spend about 80% of your time, energy, and effort in improving the things you already do well. And that's what I did with coaching, and I also do it with speaking as well. And so I've been able to develop that, and so I'm a much better coach today than I was in '05. And I started out just really doing free coaching for the first few months, which is what most of the trainings tell you to do. Start out doing some free coaching and then start to charge a little bit and then work up from there. And now, it's just taken off, and it's an amazing experience. And just getting to see the difference that I get to make in people's lives, a small part of that through the coaching and the speaking, and that just makes that fire inside of me grow even more.
That's inspiring. That's incredible.
I'm ready to go. I'm fired up. DJ, you got any questions for us?
So Tommy, Lenny is a fire in his own. So
yeah, I'm sorry.
You're lighting each other right now.
Usually you get 100%. I'm at like 75. Working with some sinus stuff, so I apologize. I'm usually like,
sometimes that happens. I get that.
But
he's dang.
What you got next, D?
So now we're seeing your progress as a life coach and seeing how, you've seen the lives change. Now, becoming a pastor, is that something you ever envisioned as well? Or how does that work in tandem, to life coaching, speaking, fathering,
right.
things like that?
I think the pastoring part of it actually came first when two stories when I was a kid. And when I talk about being a kid at this point, I'm talking like 8 and 9 years old. I was a rambunctious kid. You could probably kind of pick up on that, can't you? I was not necessarily a mischievous kid, but I was full of energy. It was hard for me to just sit down and calm down. I was always on the go and doing things. And so when my mom would take my sister and me to church, we would go to church. Of course, you sit there for an hour, which was not a good experience for me as a kid because I did not want to sit down. So when church was over, I was ready to release that energy. And what I would do, if you notice in many churches, especially traditional churches, they all come to that middle aisle and they walk down the middle aisle. They crowd that middle aisle and they come down and they shake the minister's hand and then they walk out of the building. Well, I would get in that aisle and I would come down and I would shake the minister's hand, and then I would get out of line and turn around and fight through the crowd because the crowd's all going this direction and I'm going back the other direction. And so I'm knocking people down and everything. And I would get back in line and I'd come through and I'd shake his hand again. And then I'd turn around and go back through the line and I'd get back and I'd shake his hand again. I did this for several weeks. And then one Sunday, the minister took me by the shoulders and I didn't have any idea what he was about to do to me. I was scared. And he took me by the shoulders and he moved me right beside him. And he said, "Why don't you stand here beside me and shake everybody else's hand as they go out?" If he had given me $1 million, it would not have meant more to me. And I don't know how long I did that. It was for a long time. Every Sunday I would come through and I would shake his hand. His name was Jack Bunch. He's since passed away. I would shake his hand and then I would stand right beside him and I would shake everybody else's hand as they went out. And so, it never dawned on me then, hey, maybe I'm born for this. But looking back on it, that was probably an event that really kind of anchored me in that direction. And then another thing, oftentimes I would bring home Sunday school material. I'd go to Sunday school class and we would get this literature, and I would bring it home and I would stand up on the hearth in front of our fireplace and I would read it pretending like I was preaching.
Wow.
And so the preaching, the ministry, the pastoral part of it was really a part of me before the coaching was. And then, I was never a good student in school. I never was the kind of person that skipped school. Matter of fact, I enjoyed going to school. I enjoyed the 6th grade so well, I took it twice. But, I just never excelled. I was an average student at best. And so when I decided to go to Bible college, people were surprised. I was surprised, to be honest with you. It was like, am I glutton for punishment here? But I just felt a call on my life to go into ministry. And to be honest with you, at the time, I thought it was going to be music ministry. And that's what I majored in my first semester in college. And then I switched it just through some prayer and some experiences. Helped me to better understand that although music was a part of my ministry, the main part of it was the preaching and the teaching. And so I switched programs over to the preaching program and finished out my degree doing that, my undergrad degree.
So I have something to follow up on that. Going back to the energy, and then I'll get to the last one you just talked about. So the energy, have you ever ran up an escalator like as it's coming down?
I have.
Oh,
I haven't gotten all the way up.
Hard?
I haven't gotten all the way up, but I have run up them, yes.
It's ridiculously hard. I had to ask. It was the first thing that popped into my mind when you were saying I'm running back against the people. I'm like, he's definitely tried that.
As an adult, have you? As an adult, I've tried that. I never tried it as a kid. Where I grew up, we didn't have a whole lot of escalators.
Gotcha.
But as an adult, I have tried running up it, yes.
I used to do that as a kid all the time. My mom was in a hospital for like a couple days. She had like surgery, and there was an escalator, and I ran up it and literally got to the top, and I was like,
Awesome.
why did I do that to myself? But
I feel like that's the ultimate test, though.
There
you go.
Your passion, like
when
it
you
really
get done,
is.
you're like, yeah, I did that.
We could write an exercise program, and that would be the ultimate goal, and then we could
Find an escalator. Find an escalator. All you need to do is go somewhere that has an escalator, run up it. That's it.
There you go.
Lose weight.
Escalating to your top potential. There you go.
So going back to the Bible college, like when was that? Like I'm guessing you went to church as a kid, so your family was very religious your whole life, or was it like when did that come into the picture? Religion.
When I was born, my family lived up in northern Kentucky, just south of Cincinnati, Ohio. And when they lived up there, they were what we call Creasters. They went to church on Christmas and Easter. And so, they were not real active in church. Now, both of my parents had grown up down in the southeastern part of Kentucky. And they had talked about moving back down there. My dad worked for the railroad, and because of his job, they moved up to northern Kentucky. But they had since had a hub down in that area where they grew up, and so the door was open for them to be able to move back down there. And I had this little thing that I did that helped them make that decision a little quicker. I burned our house down. And so,
Whoa! What?
Well, that just took a big leap.
Oh my goodness!
I was about 4 or 5 years old, and it's weird. I don't remember anything else when I was that age, but I remember this like it was yesterday. I took one of my sister's Barbie dolls, and there were several people over the house, and so they were playing cards, and a lot of them were smoking, so there was a lot of smoke already in the house. And I took one of my sister's Barbie dolls, which I never really liked because she spent more time with her Barbie dolls than she did with me. And so I went into my mom and dad's bedroom, and I set this Barbie doll's hair on fire, and then I put it on my mom and dad's bed, and then I walked back into the living room and sat down and watched TV. And so, like I said,
So Lenny was a firefighter.
Oh, really?
Backstory on him.
You will be real interested in one aspect of this story if you were a firefighter. I just went back in and sat down, and like I said, the house was kind of full of smoke anyway because a lot of people were in there smoking. They were 2 rooms away, and so before anybody knew it, that whole room was in flames. And of course, when they realized it, they got everybody out of the house. They called the fire department. The fire department came. Just as they were walking in the door, my dad had a lot of guns and a lot of ammunition.
No.
And about the time the fire department got to the house, that fire got to that ammunition,
Boom, boom,
and
boom,
it started going off. And so they backed out. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. I am thankful for that. But it is another aspect of the story. It's funny. A few years ago, my sisters went back to that house. I say it burned it down. It didn't completely burn down, but it was unlivable for a long time. And so my parents decided, okay, it's time to move. So they moved back down to southeastern Kentucky. This is going to circle back around to what we were talking about with church here a minute ago. But my sisters went back to that house just a few years ago because that's where they grew up. The majority of their youth was in that house. And so they just wanted nostalgia, go back and experience it. And they told the people that were living there that their brother set this house on fire. And they go, oh, yeah, we've heard that story. So you see, in northern Kentucky, I'm still a legend up there.
You're a legend. Guys, we have a legend on the podcast. All right? Doesn't matter what they say, it's still a legend. You know what I mean?
I've just shifted the fire from the Barbie doll to my heart, okay? That's what's happened. But when we moved back down to southeastern Kentucky, where both of my parents grew up, my mom started taking me and my sister. My other sisters were already grown at this point and out of the house. But the one closest to my age, she took me and my sister to the church where she grew up. And my grandparents went to that church. I had other relatives went to that church. And my dad didn't go at that point. But that is where I began to get that faith foundation. So I was about 5 years old when we started going to this church. That's the same church where I was walking down the aisle and then, would turn around and go back through the crowd. And when I was 15, I got to preach my first sermon at that church. They had asked our youth group to do a Sunday night worship service where the youth were in charge of everything.
Wow.
And my youth leaders asked me if I would preach. And of course, I'd never preached a sermon, never even thought about preaching a sermon other than standing in front of the fireplace on the hearth. And so I agreed to do that. The minister that was there at that time, it was a different minister at this point, Monty Cooper, sat down with me and helped me write out a 20-minute sermon. And I got up and preached it in all of about 2.5 minutes. I was scared to death, but I got through it. But there was something that struck a chord in me. Even though I was scared to death, it struck a chord in me. I think I would like to do this. And later on, I came to understand that maybe that was a tugging on my heart from God through the Holy Spirit to do that. And so, it all started with setting my house on fire.
Well, that's definitely setting your heart on fire, your life on fire. That's very symbolistic right there. Very tragic at the same time.
I don't have any words.
I've got Lenny speechless now.
I'm so speechless right now. That's incredible. He said, you know what? I don't like living here. Let's burn the house down. It's a great way to move. I mean, listen, if you don't like where you live, burn your house down.
There you go.
Let's not encourage that.
We're not.
But there is a metaphorical meaning to that.
Oh.
If you don't like where you are, set your heart on fire. and it will.
I love
move
it.
you.
I love it.
There
I love
you
it. Go,
There's
go,
a
go.
metaphor there.
But we do need to say a disclaimer. We, by all means, do not encourage you guys to burn your house down. If you do burn your house down and you heard it from here, we are not legally responsible for anything that happens. Legal disclaimer, just our legal team has to let you know. Anyway, we're not at fault. I love it. I need a second. So, DJ, you have to ask another question because I'm just... my mind.
So okay, so clearly this lit your literal and figurative heart on
Right.
fire here, and really, I guess really set the course for your life. Because do you think if that didn't happen, if you didn't do setting the house on fire, things like that, do you think your life would be really different from that point? Basing the move, basing who you were interacting with. Was there when you guys moved to more southern? Did it? If you didn't meet certain connections there, would you not be where you are
It's
today?
very possible. It's hard to say definitely how things would have been different, how my life would have turned out different. I don't know exactly, but obviously there would have been some differences there. Maybe God still would have used something to pull me into ministry. I feel like he would have somehow. But maybe not. I don't know. It's hard to say. But we do know that certain things happen in our lives that change the whole trajectory of our life. And that's some of those things. The fact that we did move at that time. Because how many people talk about moving somewhere and 20 years later they're still in the same place? Again, geographically
Many people.
or metaphorically.
Yeah.
They're still in the same place. And so who knows? I may have
They're still in the same
grown
job.
up
They're still in the
that
same
area,
Or
and it may have been a lot different because maybe my parents would have never gotten back involved in church, and if they didn't, there's a good chance I would not have it either gotten back in church. So
that move definitely made your parents or I don't know because I can't speak for them, but made it like a realization. Okay, we need to go back to church. We need to implement this in our kids' lives. How'd y'all go from southeastern Kentucky? How did you go from southeastern Kentucky to Long Island?
Now we're making
Like,
leaps.
I'm sorry, but that's like the most random place to be. Like, how'd you get to New York? Did your parents go with you? Like, was it just you, or how did that work?
no, my parents remained in southeastern Kentucky until they passed away.
Oh, man.
And of course, I went to Johnson Bible College. It was just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee. The odd thing about it is when we lived up in northern Kentucky, it was an urban area. It was like a suburb of Cincinnati, and I don't know if it was something in my blood that I got from that experience or what, but I can remember in Bible college. Getting involved in some urban ministry stuff because at the time I had a heart for urban ministry. Matter of fact, at one point I went, I dropped out of ministry because you don't make a whole lot of money in ministry. I mean, I was still in church and stuff, but I dropped out in order to get a job at Toyota Motor Manufacturers in Georgetown, Kentucky, to save up money to go back to school. My plan was to go back to school and get a master's degree in urban ministry. This would have been 99, 2000, and there was a college within my tradition. Lincoln Christian College had a seminary up in Chicago where they had just opened. It was like 2 or 3 years old, where they offered a master's in urban ministry. I didn't want to go into further debt, and so I quit the ministry I was in order to go to work and just save up money for that. While I was working at Toyota, Lincoln closed that program. It ended. It just didn't take off the way they thought it was going to. And so, at that point I was like, okay, God, send me an email. What do you want me to do now? And two changes took place at that point. I had been dating my wife for about 6 years at this point. and had never proposed or anything like that. People were wondering if I was ever going to propose and all of that stuff. I would tell them, marriage is a serious thing. You can't jump into it too quickly. And they go,
Yeah.
6 years? But one of the things that I did, I took a large chunk of that money I've been saving up for getting my master's degree, and I went and bought an engagement ring. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
snap.
And so in Christmas of 1999, I proposed to my wife. Some people said I did it then because I thought that the Y2K thing was going to get me out of it, but that was not the reason. Not the reason.
Dang it, the plan didn't work.
And then in July of 2000, we got married. Here's another significant thing that I did in between proposing to my wife in December of 99 and getting married in July of 2000. I quit my job at Toyota in order to start a ministry where I would be paid entirely through donations. Now, my future mother-in-law at this point thought I had lost my mind. And looking back on it, I get that. I can understand that. But I started a ministry, but this is what I felt like God wanted me to do. And I started a ministry called Upside Down Ministries. And we kind of took the name from Acts chapter 17, verse 6, where if you read that in the King James or New King James, it said, those who have turned the world upside down have come here too. They were referencing Paul and the apostles and the other followers of Jesus. And so that's where we got the title for the ministry. And again, I was traveling around speaking. I was still doing a lot of music stuff. I was doing leading worship, doing some like church concerts and stuff like that. And I did that for 8 years. I thought I would do that for the rest of my life. I thought this is my niche. This is what I love right here. But God had other plans. He had other plans.
Usually does.
Yes.
Usually does.
And I fought with him for about 1.5 years on this, to be honest with you. When I first started Upside Down Ministries, it was just before my wife and I got married. When we got married, she traveled with me. When we had our first child in December of 2003, she traveled with me a little less, but she still traveled with me some. Our first child traveled so well. It was amazing. It was amazing. She would sleep through the night and all this stuff. And so she was able, so I still continued to do that. We had our second child in June of 2006. At that point, it became a little more difficult. And also the ministry had started to grow, and so I was on the road a lot more, especially during the summer. That was our real busy time. And one summer we looked at it, and from the 1st of June until the middle of August, for 2.5 months, I was home 11 days out of that.
Wow.
And so I realized I needed to do some adjustments, because if I lead 10,000 people to Jesus, but yet I neglect my children, then I failed as both a father, a husband, and a minister at that point. And so, I looked at what can I do with this and how can I adjust this or whatever. And the whole time I think God is telling me it's time to let it go. I just didn't want to listen. I don't want to let this go. This is awesome. I love what I do. I just need to make some adjustments. And I'm like, God, please, I don't want to lose my ministry. And when I said that, God reminded me, no. This isn't your ministry. This is my ministry, God is saying to me. Yes, that is the wake-up call. I was thinking it was my ministry, and it wasn't. It was God's ministry. He just allowed me to be a part of it for a period of time. And I was at a minister's retreat in January of 2008. Like I said, I wrestled with God for 1.5 years on this. And I was wrestling with him at this retreat. At times, it brought me to tears. And it was in the middle of a worship service at this retreat. And they began to sing the song. I think it's called Blessed Be the Name. But there's a part in that song where it quotes the scripture where it says, He gives and takes away. He gives and takes away. Blessed be his name. And when I sang that, I thought, He gave it to me for a period of time, and now he's taken it away. And as hard as that was to give up, I have to accept the fact that God knows better than I do. One of the things I often say in church is when you disagree with God, you just have to assume you're wrong. And so I was disagreeing with God, but I came to the realization that in my disagreement, I was wrong. And so I began to make adjustments in that, and part of that process was I had no desire to go back into pastoral ministry. I'd been burned a couple of times, had some bad experiences, but I realized during this time that's what God wanted me to do. And so by January of 2010, that's what I did. I went back into pastoral ministry. But I also made the adjustment to start doing public speaking and training and coaching during this time as well. Like I said, in 2005 is when I first got introduced to coaching. That's probably a lot more details than what you were looking for, but there's my story.
I think that was perfect because I answered a lot of the questions I already had.
So now, how'd you get to Long Island?
That's right. Yeah. How did I get to Long Island?
Yes. So now we got the journey, which is very important too.
Those were my next line of questions, but you answered all those.
Like I said, there was a period of time in my life where I had a passion for urban ministry, and it never fully left. It adjusted. My passions changed, but you know, when you have a passion for something, you don't just kick it to the curb, even though it may not be your main passion anymore. And so that was still there to some extent. I just kind of shoved it down. We did live in Lexington, Kentucky for a while, which is definitely not New York City, but it's much more. It's much more than southeastern Kentucky as well. And so, you know, got to do some ministry there in that aspect. Got to do some volunteer urban ministry with the church I was a part of there, Crossroads Christian Church. When my daughter was 12 years old, she said she wanted to go to New York City for her 13th birthday. And one of the reasons she wanted to go, she had done some modeling when she was younger, like 6 or 7. And one of the agencies that came to Ohio to do some modeling pictures, they're a New York company. And so my daughter actually had her picture on one of those billboards in New York City for a period of time. But we weren't able to come up and see it. We saw pictures of it, but we weren't able to come up and see it. But since that time, she always wanted to just come up and at least go to where it was. When it was there. And so for her 13th birthday, my wife and my sister brought my daughter to New York City. They came up for five days. Neither one of them had ever been, and they fell in love with it. They fell in love with it. And when they came back home, they both told me, if you ever get the opportunity to get a church in or near New York City, take it. And about a year and a half later is when this position opened up on Long Island. I just happened to be connected on Facebook. I didn't know him personally, but I was connected on Facebook with the minister that was here before me. He had been here 37 years and was retiring. And so we followed up on it. We prayed about it. We interviewed, came up here and met the people, fell in love with the people up here at Glen Cove Christian Church, and they decided they wanted me, and we decided we wanted them, and so we brought that together. And that was, I started here in August of 2019, about 6.5 months before the world shut down through a pandemic.
That's
I know, right? I was still learning my people, getting to know my people, and all of a sudden I couldn't see them.
That's crazy. And to even think about COVID being 3 years ago is wild.
Yeah.
So I mean, you talked about your whole journey leading up to this point. Now you're in it, right? And this is 2019, right? Let's bring it back to then. You're in it. The world shuts down. How do you respond, and how do you come out of this crazy, unknown, Like at the time, nobody knew what COVID was. Now we kind of reflect as like, oh, okay,
Right.
you know. But how did you navigate those waters, and how did you tread the waters to be like, this is what we're gonna do. This is how we're gonna keep people safe, but we're still gonna keep the ball rolling for people who are on fire for God.
Well, I will tell you, for a period of time, like many other industries, the speaking and training industry shut down. There was no speaking and training going on, at least for a period of time. After a few months, they started to do some virtual stuff, and then eventually it opened up where they're bringing people live again, obviously. But my main focus at that point was, how do we do church? To be honest with you, I wasn't even thinking about the speaking and the training aspect at that point. I was thinking, how do we continue to move forward as a church without meeting in the building? And there was no really church to look to as a model, because every church was asking the same question. How do we continue to move forward in the midst of this? And so we began to really amp up our online presence. It's funny, when we first came, they had almost no online presence. They had a YouTube. That had been, I think it was about 3 or 4 years old at that point. They had like 4 videos on their YouTube channel, so it wasn't active at all. And so my wife, after a couple of weeks of being here, she actually set up an iPad near the back of the church in the middle aisle, and so we did Facebook Live, you know, with our services, and everybody like, oh, this is so cool. And then yeah,
I remember hearing that.
Yeah.
That was great.
Then the pandemic hit.
Good old iPad.
Good old iPad. It was crazy. Looking back on it, it's so cringy to look at those videos compared to what we have now. But that's what we did. You know, we learned from if you're familiar with his name escapes me. It was a judge in the Bible. I'll think of it here in a minute when I stop trying to think about it. But it says that he killed 600 Philistines with a goad, and a goad is just like it's not a military weapon. It's a shepherd's stick, you know, with a little point on the end of it. And Pat Williams actually wrote a whole book on this guy, and the whole concept behind it is this. The whole premise is this: he did what he could with what he had, right where he was. And that is awesome. So as a church,
Quote number 2 of the week.
We're gonna get like 10 quotes out of Tommy here.
So as a church, we did what we could with what we had, right where we were. Then the pandemic hit, and we were trying to set up something where we could, because we had a worship leader, we have another minister that's involved in all the services, and then me. And instead of all of us coming to the building, because we were still scared to death that if we were within 6 feet of anybody, that we would die. And so we were trying to figure out how we're going to bring them in to do online services. You can't do that with an iPad. And the weird thing about Facebook is that Facebook Live, for the longest time, and they do it now, but for the longest time, you could bring people in. You could invite people into your Facebook Lives. And we thought, well, we'll do that. In February of 2020, they stopped offering that option. Now,
Of course
they have
did.
since
Of course.
added it back. You could do that now. But when we really needed it, it didn't exist. And so I told Tammy, I told the other minister and the worship minister, I was like, Facebook doesn't allow this anymore. We're going to have to figure out something else. And they're like, well, what else can we do? But I am a never settle kind of guy. Matter of fact, here in a minute, if we got time, we'll go through the 8 decisions that you need to make in order to break out of the monotony of the mundane and the mediocre so that you can break through to your enthusiasm zone. And one of those decisions...
Shout out to his book, Never
Oh
Settle.
my
Yeah. One of those decisions is never settle.
Link is going to be in the description.
And so I'm a never settle kind of guy. That's why I'm so high energy. And so I just began to get on the internet and just Google all this stuff. How can we make this work? And I came across a platform called BeLive, which had just gone public in February of 2020. And so they'd only been public
very
for about a
convenient.
month or so when we were looking at them. And through Be Live, you were able to bring people in. And so we got on the platform. Tammy learned how to use it. She's our tech person. She learned how to use it, and we were able to get it to where we could bring people in. And then obviously when things started opening back up, Be Live didn't serve our full purposes like we needed. And so we began to look at other ways to be able to do online better, because a lot of people, when we first opened up, when we closed down, we were running right around 100 at our church. When we opened the doors back up, we were running in the 30s. And so a lot of people were still afraid to come to the building. So we tried to figure out how can we do the best job we can at giving them a worship experience online in their homes. And eventually that led us to DJ. Okay?
Shout out to that
shout
guy.
out
Hold on.
to that guy.
Who is that guy? You mean Tech Light?
Tech Light, there you go. I was actually at
Sponsor for
another
today.
church, and they had just had new audio visual stuff put in, and they were showing it to me because I know we were looking at that stuff, and I said, you know, who did this? Is it somebody in your church? Is it somebody you hired? And they gave me DJ's number, and so we called DJ and talked with him, let him know what we were needing and what we were looking for. And him and his team came in and they set us up. And now, listen, we are presently looking at the possibility of literally starting our online campus. Not just streaming online services, but actually developing membership and small groups and stuff through our online campus.
That's so
Yes.
awesome. That's all right. No pressure. Well, we can mute DJ if you want to, but like first impressions of DJ.
First impressions of DJ. Here's what I love about
This is where you can talk some junk about him if you want.
Man, I couldn't stand him. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Here's what I like about DJ. He is both professional and personal. He's professional. He knows his stuff. He knows what needs to be done. He listens to you. He doesn't come in and say, okay, this is what you got to do. He listens to you and what your needs are, and then gives options to go with that. But he's also personal. You know, DJ has since become a friend of mine and my wife's and other leaders in our church as well. Just because he is so personal and we've got to know him a little better. And it's been a great experience. Oftentimes tech people, not all tech people obviously, but some tech people have trouble being personal. They know their stuff, man. Their tech is way up here, but they struggle with one-on-one relationships.
Yeah.
And the great thing about DJ is that he knows his stuff. He's got the tech stuff, but he also knows the relationship aspect of it as well. And so that's what I like. That's what I like most about DJ. He's both professional and personal.
I know what you got least.
I appreciate you,
What I
Tony.
like least about him. No, I'm messing. No, DJ's a great guy, and he's helped with a bunch of people similar in your situation to help him get on the road to, like how you were saying, you're able to now do this online campus. You're able to stream and get all these things that you need, build that online presence. How was that for you? Like navigate. Like, were you a big social media guy before you met DJ, or?
I am very active on some social media platforms. Facebook, I'm very active. Instagram, a little less active. TikTok, I'm sporadic.
I always see him come up on my TikTok, and I'm like, yes, Mr.
There you go.
Enthusiasm.
There you go.
There
My
it is.
goal is to do it every day, but that doesn't always work out. I did when I first got on for a month. I had a competition with another guy in our church who also has TikTok account, and he does concerts and stuff. and we had this little contest going to see who could get the most likes and the most connections over the period of 30 days. And so I did TikToks every day. I'm a very competitive person. And so it drove me, sometimes it would be 11 o'clock at night, but I stayed up until I got that TikTok up and did that every day for 30 days. But I have slacked off with that recently. I am most active, as I said before, on Facebook. And so I'm very active, but as far as the tech aspect of all of that, my wife is the one that sets all that up. She's the one that first got me on Facebook back in the latter part of '08. She's like, "Oh, you got to get on this." I'm like, "Really?" And back then, I mean, pretty much everybody was just showing what they were eating for dinner and
the good old days.
And I'm like, "What is?"
Quick segue to snack of the week.
yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
I completely forgot, so I was going to have you edit it to go back into the beginning at the end. But yeah.
We'll
So
do
we
it
do
now.
this segment where, because this is all about entrepreneurs, right? We want to help people leave the 9 to 5 and feed that fire in their life and what exactly they want to do. So we came up with this segment because I'm a foodie. I'm a big foodie. This is a nice way of saying I'm a big guy. And I love snacks. So basically, snacks on the go, anything you can grab and go. We try to help entrepreneurs, people who are on the road a lot, give them a good snack. So my snack of the week is Robert Irvine. I think it's Irvine. Dr. Robert Irvine. He has these Fit Crunch bars, and this is the chocolate chip cookie dough flavor. 16 grams of protein, 3 grams of sugar, 210 calories. You can get them at 7-Eleven, Walmart, all the good stores. Anyway, DJ, what's your snack of the week?
These are delicious. My kids have destroyed the box, and it's my Sam's Club snack of the week. By the
We're
way,
working on a
that's been my
sponsorship.
thing.
Sam's Club snack of the week.
Yes. It's the veggie. It's like the veggie straws, but they're veggie chips. And for the holiday, they're Ghost and Bats.
Oh, look at that.
Right there. Oh, Ghost and Bats.
Tommy, what do you got for
My kids
what do
have
you got for
devoured
snack
them.
of the week?
I'm being very spiritual here. A Dove. I got Dove's chocolates. And it's the dark chocolate. I'm a dark chocolate guy. I don't really even like milk chocolate anymore, to be honest with you. I love my
Me
dark
too.
chocolate. When I am home, I will typically, for dessert, after lunch, I'll get me just a small serving of dark chocolate, which has health benefits, by the way. It's better for you than milk chocolate. And the cool thing about Dove chocolates is that it has these little sayings inside of it. Now, as I get older, I need help in being able to do. Yeah. When life isn't going right, go left. You probably can't read that. When life isn't going right, go left.
Let's
Now,
go.
I don't think that's a political statement.
That's
The
fire
third
right
quote
there.
of the week.
That's
Shout out to Dove. But yeah, so same here. I used to be really big in the milk chocolate. Like Kit Kats are still my favorite to this day, but they came up with dark chocolate flavor. Love
Yeah.
it. Ever since I've gotten older, even red wine. I used to hate wine and any of that. Now I love red wine. I like dark chocolate. It's like my taste buds are maturing.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. But
The interesting thing about Dove chocolates,
These are all
though,
healthy stuff.
is it is a part of my story. Back in probably 2012 or 13, it's really kind of a rough area of my life. I was going through a lot of stuff, and I was eating a Dove chocolate, and I opened it up, and the wrapper said on the inside, "Do not settle for a spark. Light a fire instead."
no,
so he took that literally.
There you
Oh
go,
my
man. It is
gosh.
crazy.
God.
This fire theme has followed me all my life.
Wow.
So we need to clip that and send it to Dove so they can sponsor you with a bunch of dark chocolate. That's what we're gonna do.
That would be awesome. I would love it. When I do live
There we go. We
events, I
got it.
typically have Dove chocolates laying out on the tables and stuff for participants. So
Dove,
we know
Dove,
why.
we need to get this man sponsored, even if it's just some free goodies. We need to get him something.
So just to summarize, so you went in your life, you set your house on fire. You set your heart on fire, your life on fire. From being young. finding what you like, your passions, working a day job at Toyota, to leaving that, to really pursuing ministry, to pursuing, what God had called onto your life, and then, you hit a break, hit your brakes, took a step back, reevaluated, redid some things, and then God changed your life again and went full force right into it. How could you tell somebody who's looking to do something like that, who could be working at Toyota right now, hashtag Toyota sponsorship.
We're just looking for any sponsorships at this point.
Right. But what would you say to somebody that they're working their 9 to 5 right now, who's not sure what's going to go, but they're passionate about something? They have a fire. They might have set their house on fire at one point. What could you say to them that could ignite that fire even more to make a move?
Organized dreaming. Organized dreaming. I do not suggest, under most situations, unless you just feel like God is telling you to do that, to just up and quit your job today and just go plunge into something. Okay? But at the same time, if you do not feel like what you're doing as a job right now is what God has called you to do, you do need to begin today looking at how you could take steps into a different direction. Doesn't mean you quit your job today, but it means you begin looking at how you're going to leave that job, because 10 years down the road, you don't want to be in the same job going, man, I wish I'd done something else.
Man, I hate this so much. I should leave. Or
exactly.
the people who are like, man, if I would have just started 6 months ago, why not start today?
Yeah.
Why not start today?
Listen, as the old saying goes, the best time to start is 20 years ago. The second best time to start is today. Okay?
That's quote number 5. That's quote number 5.
Begin making those adjustments. Now realize, don't become an entrepreneur because you think it's going to be easy. Oh, I don't like the 9 to 5. I like having my freedom so that I can do things and all this. Listen, there are times that being an entrepreneur, you have less freedom than you do in a 9 to 5. It is tough. It's being an entrepreneur is working 80 hours a week so that you don't have to work 40. That's what an entrepreneur is.
So
it sounds so counterintuitive, but it's so worth it.
I've recently met a mentor, and he's really been helping me kind of grow my business on the back end. He's a multi-millionaire. He has literally created, I think, 6 or 7 super profitable businesses. I met him on accident, and he kind of has just been like, mentoring me. And he said, the thing about entrepreneurship, he said, I love it. And when people ask me about it, I said, it's great. I can work any 80 hours of the week I want.
There you go. Exactly.
So when he said that, I was laughing. But when he what he means is, I think, and I'll talk about this real quick. I think people think that entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneur is this word that's cool nowadays, right?
Right.
Gary Vee does it. All these people who you see all the time do it, and they say it's cool. So you think automatically it's cool, and it is cool, right? All of us here, right? We get to, it works out. We get to make money doing what we love. We get to, make our schedule. You get to spend time with your family, DJ, me. You get to do so many cool things. But I think that's the stuff that gets highlighted and shown to the world. But what people don't see is, for me, I do YouTube. So I do social media for businesses, similar to what DJ does. And I also am a content creator. So I do YouTuber, whatever the term is. We do food reviews, public interviews, all this stuff. But what people don't see behind the scenes is me up till 2 o'clock in the morning editing videos,
right? Getting
4 hours of sleep, doing meetings, networking, all these other things that are behind the scenes. And you're exhausted. And then today I'm run down. We still have the podcast to shoot. I still have 2 more meetings to do today, an event tonight. So it's everyone sees the glitz and the glamour and the money and the fame, but no one sees the hard work and the dedication put into it. What are your thoughts on mainstream, just people seeing the one side of entrepreneurship and not seeing the full work of the package that goes into everything behind the scenes?
Yeah, you got to understand the full package. And here's the thing. Don't become an entrepreneur just because you think it's cool. Become an entrepreneur because you have a passion to move in that direction. Because if you don't have a passion for it, eventually you're going to give it up because it is too hard to do without passion. But listen, if you don't have a passion for the job you're doing right now, give that up too. Again, be strategic about it. Don't do it today, but begin today making those steps. Listen, there are people that work 9 to 5 doing something that they truly love. And if that's the case, keep doing that.
Yeah.
But if you don't love what you do, begin looking for another direction. And here's an acronym for it, okay? You got to face it. If you're going to make that adjustment and go into becoming an entrepreneur, you got to face it. And face is an acronym. The F is for focus. You got to focus in on what it is you want to do. You don't want to just become an entrepreneur. That's too broad. What is it you want to do? I couldn't be an entrepreneur at just anything. I'm an entrepreneur at what I do best and what I have a passion for: speaking, coaching, teaching, running retreats. I have a passion for that. So focus what you want to do. The A is begin to take action. Take action. Develop a plan of action and begin taking those steps, which eventually leads to you leaving the job that you don't love to doing something that you do love. Delatoro McNeil, in his book, Stuck Between a Job and a Dream, says that there are 3 kinds of jobs. There's your dream job, stepping stone jobs, and then deadbeat jobs. A deadbeat job is a job you don't belong in, but you just do it for the money and the benefits. You know, a salary is something that the world pays you to give up on your dream. That's what a salary is.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness.
He dropped
That's
the
not
mic
original
right
with
there.
me. I don't know who said that originally, but I've heard that. And so that's a deadbeat job. You don't want that. Stepping stone jobs are any job that take you closer to your dream. Doesn't even necessarily have to be related. Listen, when I was in college, I worked at Cracker Barrel. I bussed tables. That wasn't necessarily connected to what I do now.
You gotta do.
Yeah, but it helped me get to where I'm doing what I do now. So stepping stone jobs are okay. You just don't want to spend the rest of your life there. You work them for a period of time as you're working toward your dream job. So you begin to take that action. The C stands for corrections. As you take actions, you'll realize some things work and some things don't. And if it doesn't work, stop it and try something else and continue to take those actions. And then the E, and Lenny, you alluded to this earlier, E is look for examples. Who are people who are where you want to be, and learn from them? Tony Robbins says that success leaves clues. So pick up on those clues and follow their example. And if you can connect with them personally, that's even better. Get a coach, get a mentor, or whatever, and connect with them.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely suggest. I think I suggest to anyone to get a mentor. I mean, it's funny. So like, we sat down and he looked at me. He goes, "So I have people I want to send this to," but he was like, "You don't charge enough," and I'm like, because again, I'm new to like this whole field of what I do, and this is my first business. So I'm like, and I just look at him and I'm like, okay. So I like readjusted some price, and now we're gonna be sending it out to some people. But it's just like he wants my best interest. He goes, I feel like this is like I ask you for more than I give, and he's like, I want you to be successful. He's like, I've done this before. So it's just like meeting people like that and like seeing there are people truly out there, like yourself included, who just want to see people succeed and grow and live out that dream and have that fire for whatever it is. It could be anything, right? It doesn't have to be, you know, like you said, there's people who love their 9 to 5. If that's your passion, if that's what you're destined to do it 100%. But if it's not, find out what it is that you love to do and that it wouldn't feel like a job, right? My dad, and I love my dad because he's always said this to me. He's like, I've never worked a day in my life. He said, love your job and you'll never work a day in your life. And he loves what he does. And anytime I ask him, I say, how's it work? He's like, I love what I do. I've never worked a day in my life. And that's the truth about life and everything. And I think, honestly, like the last thing I have for you, I don't know if DJ has anything after me, but you talked about your book and you talked about the 8 steps. Can you kind of give like a brief description of what that is for the people who may not know? Don't give them too much because we want them to go get the book. Don't give them too much. Give them just a little taste, a little appetizer, so that they can go get the book. But the 8 steps you were talking about.
I'm actually presently working on the book that lays out the 8 decisions. My previous book I wrote in 2019. It's called Never Settle for Here. It's a very simple book. It's laid out in 52 short chapters. If you want to read a chapter a week and then implement that, or if you want to read straight through it, you can. But it talks a lot about enthusiasm, about personality styles, about motivation, and that type of stuff. Digging deeper into those 8 decisions is what I'm going to be coming up with next year. And briefly, I will run through those 8 decisions. It's an acronym of the word enthused. And the E, I'm an acronym nut, man. I'm an acronym
Classic.
nut. The E is for embrace your weird. Embrace your weird. What is unique about you? Don't do something because somebody else does it. Do it because it's part of who you are. The N is never settle. Never settle. Keep moving forward. Keep pressing on. The T is turn the world upside down. If you're following your God-given calling, you'll realize it's not about you. What I do is not about me. It's about the difference I can make in the world, in the people's lives that I change. The H is hope as you climb to your God-given potential. Keep climbing, keep learning. Never get to the place where you feel like you've arrived. Keep growing, and your hope is the thing that fuels that climb. The U is utilize the power of positive failure. You will mess up, you will fall flat on your face, but if you learn from it, you can do what John Maxwell calls failing forward. So utilize the power of positive failure. The S is set goals. I cannot emphasize that enough. People who succeed as entrepreneurs are people who set goals and develop a plan of action to reach those goals. That's what I call organized dreaming. The E is engage your heart. It has to be something you're passionate about. If you're not passionate about it, do something else. And then the D is for discover your purpose. God has you here for a reason. Find out what that is. Discover your purpose and live that out. And that is how you break the monotony of the mundane and the mediocre so that you can break through to your enthusiasm zone.
That was.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you ever want to start a podcast or anything, that is right there how you close and end a podcast. Tommy, that was amazing. I mean, I literally wrote everything down you were saying. It's like chicken scratch because I write really crazy, but I was writing out everything.
He just set our podcast on
I know.
fire. I think that's like
like burning heart. That's what it is because it's the Lift and Love Podcast Network. But yeah, that I'm ready to when I talk to people like this. I'm ready, who are like you. I have another buddy who is very like that. He's not a life coach. He runs a technology company and he runs music festivals. And anytime I get off the phone with him, it's like, let's go.
Right. Yep.
And I'm ready. I have nothing else. I mean, DJ, if you have anything, Mike, drop.
I don't know what to say. Yeah, we're speechless. So if any of you viewers want to come on here, like Tommy is, he's a friend, a family, client, and he reached out to me. I didn't reach out to him. He reached out to me to be on here. If anybody, you're a business owner, leader, speaker, motivational, you want to tell your story, hit us up, hit me, hit Lenny up on social media. Our email, leaving the 9 to 5. It's in the description below. Please hit us up. We'd love to hear your story and how you can set our podcast and somebody's life on fire, figuratively. Not literally, please.
I think another thing, too, it's not even just for people who are in Tommy's position. It's for anyone who's even on the verge of trying to do something. We want to be a resource to help people get to that point where they can leave the 9 to 5, not necessarily be stuck there while they're like, oh, if only I could do this one thing. Come on, talk to us. Let's see if we have any resources or connections that can help you. But we want to talk to anyone and everyone who is passionate, is driven, like Tommy has that heart that's on fire for something, or wants to get into something. So we don't have like a hold on who we can and won't talk to, but we talk to anyone and everyone, and we want to hear your story, because I mean, if you have a story like Tommy's, that's just going to inspire, even if it's one person, right? If you inspire one person in this life, you've done the right thing. You've done something good, right? I think the expression is, I want to leave the place better than when I left. And Tommy, you're a living, breathing definition of that. You're doing it every single day. And I just heard kind of from your website and talking to DJ about you, but I'm ready to go. Like,
he's on board.
So, I mean, the last thing really for you is, I mean, before you leave, is there anything that you want to say to the people? Also, shout out your social media. The floor is yours. You got however long you need. But if there's anything you want to say to anyone specific, or if you have, you want to shout out your social media.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you guys for having me on here. I love getting on here and sharing my story and sharing some insights that I believe are maybe helpful to some people out there that's going to be listening to this. So thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for what you guys are doing, giving entrepreneurs or even potential entrepreneurs a place to be able to share, because it's an inspiration to everybody else who's in that similar position. So thank you for that. Guys, if you want to connect with me, my website is tommylanham.com. I'm also, I think, are you going to have links on this?
Yeah, we're going to have all the links.
My social media and stuff. Connect with me. I run a Facebook group called The Enthusiasm Zone. It's completely free on there, and you can find out what's going on, the retreats that I run and stuff like that. We run, my signature program is called The Enthusiasm Experience. It's a weekend that we get to spend together. We go deep into those 8 decisions that we talked about. And listen, people that's been through it love that experience. And so I encourage you, if you're interested in that. I leave you with this, okay? Make your decisions, ignite your fire, and live with enthusiasm.
And that is how you leave a pod right there. But y'all already know the deal. Until next time, hit that subscribe button, comment, share this with someone you want on the podcast, and let them get in touch with us. But until next time, there's only one thing to do, and that's lift love, crush hate, and leave that 9 to 5. Peace.